There are mistakes that don't show up in law codes or corporate handbooks. They slide in quietly through what you tolerate. The moment you let a small fracture in trust pass just this once, you're not staying peaceful. You're drafting the terms of your own decline. Power rarely explodes in a single event. It dissolves grain by grain through the behaviors you excuse. If you lead a team, a family, a company, even if you're just leading yourself, lock this in. What you refuse to confront will consume you later at 10 times the cost. Here's the mission today. 7 behaviors you never tolerate. Not because you're cruel, but because you value order, respect, and reality over fantasy. If any of this hits a nerve, it's probably because you've seen it up close. Maybe you've explained it away. That ends now. Behavior number 1. Disappearing when it matters. People love to claim they're loyal over months and years. Machiavelli would laugh. Loyalty is measured in crisis. When the water's calm, anyone can toast to you. When the boat tilts and the wind howls, watch who grabs a bucket and who goes missing. If they went silent when you needed a voice, remember that silence. Because absence is a statement. It doesn't need a speech. It already made one. If you let that slide, you broadcast a rule to everyone watching. Betrayal carries no cost. From that moment, you won't be followed out of respect. You'll be followed conditionally as long as you look like you're still winning. That isn't leadership. That's being auditioned for your own role. What do? You don't rage. You record. Faces, patterns, timestamps. And when the storm passes, those people do not return to sensitive positions. You don't have to trash them. You just make sure your future isn't balanced on the hands that dropped you. Behavior number 2. Fear in the throne room. The fastest way to collapse a system isn't an enemy. It's a leader who hesitates when action is required. Cowardice hides well. It dresses up as, let's be careful. Let's discuss more. We need consensus. Translation: I'm terrified of owning the decision. You've seen this. Meetings that spiral. Approvals that never arrive. A commander scanning the room for permission while the deadline kills the opportunity. People don't abandon leaders for being imperfect. They abandon leaders who force everyone else to carry the anxiety of indecision. A team can face a tough competitor. It cannot survive a wavering captain. Your counter? Decide. Not recklessly, decisively. You'll never have perfect information. Move with the best view you have, and live with the weight of your choice. Act first, explain later, and never let fear pretend to be moral high ground. People may forgive a ruthless call. They will not forgive paralysis dressed up as virtue. Behavior number 3. Flattery disguised as support. The sweetest danger in any palace is the person who always agrees. They don't sharpen you, they sedate you. Flattery is not feedback. It's a lever. It disconnects you from reality, feeds your need to be adored, and blinds you to incoming threats. The flatterer isn't loyal to you, they're loyal to proximity. When your shine fades, they migrate with the same smile. And if things turn, they will narrate your fall as if it proves their wisdom. How do you fix it? Reward the voice that tells you what you'd rather not hear. Build a table where warnings are welcome. The person who respectfully says, "You're off here," is protecting your future. The person who praises every move is protecting access. Your new policy: praise in small doses, pushback in steady supply. Replace performers with truth-tellers, or they'll replace truth with performance. Behavior number 4. Public disrespect, mockery, grandstanding, just a joke that lands like a slap. You don't need to be vicious. You must be clear. power runs on perception. A single unpunished challenge in public tells the room you're safe to test. This is not about ego. It's about precedent. If someone chooses the spotlight to posture against your authority, you handle it quickly and proportionally where it happened. Private dissent can be discussed. Public defiance must be addressed. Or you donate your authority to the crowd. Your playbook is simple. Stay calm, cut clean, set the boundary. You don't humiliate, you recalibrate. A measured correction teaches more than a dramatic outburst ever could. Before we continue, understand the pattern behind all four. None of these destroy you instantly. They chip away. A missed call in your worst hour, a leader who won't decide, a praise dealer who starves you of truth, a public jab you brushed off to be the bigger person. Each one writes a little rule for the audience. This is allowed. When enough of those rules stack up, your position doesn't fall, it's quietly taken. Next, we'll tackle the other three poisons: ingratitude after mercy, ambition without loyalty, and the weaponization of morality. If any faces came to mind already, that's your intuition doing its job. Keep it close. Behavior number 5, ingratitude. Machiavelli called it the silent rot that eats power from within. You help someone rise, you open doors, protect them, advocate for them, and one day, they act like none of it happened. They talk to you as if you owe them. That's not forgetfulness, it's entitlement. Ingratitude isn't just a lack of memory, it's a declaration. Your kindness no longer matters. And that's what makes it so dangerous. Because when someone can take your help, drain your time, and walk away without even a flicker of loyalty, they're not just ungrateful. They're telling everyone else that your generosity has no spine. They know you'll forgive again. They know you won't draw blood or draw a line. So they keep taking. And every time you let it happen, your mercy stops being noble. It becomes predictable. And predictable mercy in a ruthless world is suicide. You want to stay kind? Fine. But be strategic. Never let mercy go where it won't multiply. Machiavelli warned, don't plant in barren soil. That means don't keep pouring energy into people who only understand gain. Test gratitude once. If it fails, never test again. Because when you feed a snake twice, it doesn't become loyal. It just learns how to slither closer next time. And here's the harsh truth. The ungrateful rarely feel guilty. They rationalize. I've moved on. It's just business. You helped because you wanted to. They reframe your loyalty as your weakness. So if you continue giving to them, you're not kind, you're complicit. A ruler who keeps nurturing traitors doesn't lose his kingdom to force. He loses it to familiarity. Those you help the most will know exactly how to hurt you. They know your blind spots, your patience, your heart. That's why the Machiavellian rule is simple. Ingratitude is not to be corrected. It is to be removed. If you've ever built someone up only to watch them turn, remember, what you tolerated once will return wearing better excuses next time. Behavior number 6, ambition without loyalty. Ambition, on its own, isn't evil. It's fire, it fuels empires, inventions, revolutions. But when ambition isn't tied to loyalty, it becomes arson. Machiavelli knew this well. The ambitious man without allegiance doesn't serve you. He studies you. He learns your patterns, your weaknesses, and your indecisions. He's polite, charming, always agreeable. But behind those soft smiles, he's waiting for your first stumble, because that's when he makes his move. You'll know him by the way he avoids clear sides in conflict. He plays both fields, speaks well to everyone. He never disagrees too strongly, never commits too deeply. You'll mistake this neutrality for professionalism, but neutrality in the halls of power is camouflage. It hides opportunism. When you win, he cheers. When you lose, he disappears. And when you recover, he's back again, dressed as support but plotting succession. So what do? You bind or you break. Either tie his future so tightly to yours that your rise becomes his, or cut him loose before he grows roots. Do not mistake usefulness for loyalty. A brilliant mind without allegiance is a loaded weapon waiting for a target. If you can't control him, outpace him. If you can't outpace him, remove him. Because the ambitious opportunist never stops at partnership. He only stops at the throne. Machiavelli's question still cuts through the centuries. Will this man still stand with you if you lose your power? If your answer is anything less than a clear yes, you already have your answer. Behavior number 7, the moral manipulator. This one doesn't yell, doesn't rebel, doesn't swing a sword. They smile. They speak softly. They drape their ambition in virtue. They call it justice, transparency, or doing the right thing. But what they're really doing is weaponizing morality to challenge authority. Machiavelli saw it hundreds of years ago. When morality becomes a tool to attack power, it stops being moral. It becomes strategic theater. These people don't want truth. They want your throne. They frame you as cold, heartless, or corrupt, not because they care about integrity, but because that story makes them look holy. And here's the genius of their play. If you defend yourself, you look guilty. If you stay silent, you look weak. Either way, they win in the court of perception. This is why Machiavelli said, "Never let morality become the rope that tightens around your own neck." Once you allow emotion to dictate leadership, once you allow public opinion to define justice, anyone who can cry louder can seize power. You don't have to crush every critic, but you cannot tolerate the one who publicly challenges your legitimacy in the name of virtue. Private counsel is loyalty. Public preaching is an audition. The moral manipulator needs an audience. Starve them of it. The truly ethical will talk to you quietly. The fake moralist always needs a stage. When someone uses compassion as camouflage, what they're really doing is seeking applause. They don't correct leaders, they replace them. If you've ever been guilt-tripped for setting boundaries, shamed for saying no, or attacked for refusing to bend to someone's goodness, understand this is that same playbook. Machiavelli warned, don't fight on their stage. Don't explain. Don't apologize. Just remove the actor from your kingdom. All 7 behaviors, betrayal, cowardice, flattery, public defiance, ingratitude, blind ambition, and moral manipulation share one trait. They grow in the soil of your tolerance. Every time you forgive them without consequence, you're not keeping peace. You're teaching rebellion. Next, we'll weave them all together, the hidden psychology behind why people test you, how tolerance rewrites your hierarchy, and what Machiavelli's darkest wisdom reveals about keeping your throne when everyone else starts smiling too much. Let's pull the threads together. Because all 7 of these behaviors, betrayal, cowardice, flattery, public defiance, ingratitude, ambition without loyalty, and moral manipulation, follow one invisible law. They only grow where there is tolerance. Power isn't destroyed in grand battles. It's drained by small allowances, by moments when you thought being calm meant being strong, when you mistook patience for control. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He didn't warn against enemies outside your gates. He warned about those sitting beside you, the smiling ones, the ones you've forgiven 3 times, the ones who didn't mean it. Collapse doesn't begin with rebellion. It begins with your silence. Every act you let slide becomes a new rule for the world around you. The first time you tolerate betrayal, you teach your circle that loyalty is optional. The first time you allow cowardice, you teach your followers that fear is an excuse. The first time you smile at flattery, you teach your court that truth is unwelcome. The first time you laugh off public disrespect, you teach everyone that your authority can be questioned. That's how kingdoms rot, not from coups, but from comfort. Machiavelli's philosophy was never about cruelty. It was about clarity. It was about protecting order from the slow poison of human weakness. The most dangerous man in any hierarchy isn't the rebel who fights loudly. It's the one who chips away at boundaries quietly while you convince yourself it's not that serious. Think about your own life. Maybe it's a coworker who keeps missing deadlines, a friend who keeps crossing lines, a family member who keeps guilt-tripping you for having standards. The same rule applies. Every time you say, "It's fine," when it isn't, you're training them to keep going. That's the Machiavellian truth few can stomach. Forgiveness without consequence isn't kindness, it's an invitation. And people who learn they can violate you without repercussion will keep doing it until you finally have nothing left to give. Power, whether it's the power to lead a company or to lead yourself, requires the courage to enforce limits. Boundaries are the walls that keep corruption from entering your city. Every kingdom that fell had its gates opened not by enemies, but by the hands of its own rulers who couldn't say, "Enough." The reason Machiavelli's lessons feel ruthless is because reality is ruthless. He taught that when betrayal is tolerated, trust becomes currency, traded, manipulated, faked. When cowardice leads, the brave lose direction. When flattery dominates, truth becomes offensive. When disrespect goes unchecked, discipline collapses. When ingratitude thrives, loyalty disappears. When ambition goes unbound, alliances crumble. And when morality becomes theater, chaos dresses as virtue. The world rewards clarity. The world respects boundaries. And the world preys on softness disguised as goodness. This doesn't mean you walk around cold or heartless. It means your warmth is earned. It means your forgiveness is rare enough to be valuable. The man who forgives too easily teaches people they can sin for free. So what's the counter? Action. Calm, sharp, consistent action. The first time someone crosses the line, correct it clearly. The second time, remove them from your circle. Don't give third chances. They don't exist in power dynamics. The third time is always your own fault. Machiavelli didn't teach us to be cruel. He taught us to see human nature as it is, flawed, strategic, and self-serving, and to rule accordingly. Because most people aren't loyal out of principle. They're loyal out of benefit. And when the benefit fades, so does their devotion. That's why your first job as a leader, or as a man protecting his peace, is to make loyalty costly to fake and betrayal expensive to attempt. You do that by establishing consequences so consistent that even your silence carries weight. You don't need to scream. You don't need to threaten. Just act once and let your actions echo. When people see that lines mean something in your world, they adjust or they leave. Either outcome strengthens your foundation. Now, imagine a leader who does the opposite. He keeps explaining himself, keeps tolerating just one more chance, keeps forgiving those who should have been forgotten. What happens? People stop fearing his wrath, stop respecting his time, stop valuing his authority, and soon, they start testing him, not out of hate, but curiosity. They want to see what's real. They want to know where the wall stands. And if there's no wall, then there's no leader. That's the brutal simplicity of Machiavellian power. It's not about dominating others, it's about mastering the laws that govern them. A kingdom doesn't fall when enemies rise. It falls when the ruler loses the courage to punish the small disloyalties that build the big ones. When you understand that, you stop blaming the world for disrespecting you, and you start realizing that every act of tolerance is a quiet vote for your own downfall. Next, we'll go deeper into the psychology of it all. Why people test your strength. Why boundaries attract both loyalty and envy. And how Machiavelli's principles can protect you not just in politics or leadership, but in every relationship where power is silently at play. Let's look beneath the surface. The psychology that drives all this. Because these behaviors don't appear randomly. They are human strategies for survival in social hierarchies. Machiavelli understood something few philosophers dared to admit. People test boundaries not because they hate authority, but because they're always searching for it. When you enforce your limits, you communicate certainty. When you hesitate, you create a vacuum. And nature abhors a vacuum. Someone will fill it. That's why the weak test the strong. Why subordinates test leaders. Why family tests your patience. It's not always malice. It's instinct. The moment they sense doubt, they move in. A leader's first job isn't to please, it's to define reality. If you don't define it, someone else will, and they'll define it in their favor. Machiavelli saw this in every court and kingdom. The same pattern applies in your life. When you tolerate disrespect, the disrespectful begin to rewrite the rules. They decide what's acceptable, and soon you're living by their terms while calling it peace. Understand this. People don't rise to your level of kindness. They sink to the limits of your tolerance. That's why being nice without boundaries is a trap. It attracts takers, not allies. The good-hearted often confuse goodness with openness, and in the world of power, openness is exposure. Machiavelli's genius was not in teaching manipulation. It was in revealing how easily the human mind rationalizes betrayal. People rarely see themselves as disloyal. They just had to do what's best for them. They call it fairness. They call it practicality. And by the time you realize what happened, they've already rewritten history to cast you as the fool who trusted too much. This is why your clarity must be ruthless. You don't need to expose every liar. You just need to stop rewarding them. You don't need to humiliate the coward. You just need to replace him with someone decisive. You don't need to argue with the moral manipulator. You just stop giving them the stage. Quiet authority terrifies more than loud threats ever could. A man who sees clearly and acts consistently becomes untouchable. Not because he's feared, but because his standards are predictable. People know exactly where they stand. There's no confusion, no room for games. And paradoxically, that's what creates true loyalty. Because loyalty doesn't come from charm or warmth. It comes from trust. And trust is built when your boundaries never change depending on your mood. Let's break it down further. Betrayal happens when you ignore early signs. Disloyalty always whispers before it shouts. Cowardice spreads when people see hesitation rewarded with comfort. Flattery thrives when truth becomes expensive. Public defiance grows when silence replaces consequence. Ingratitude multiplies when kindness has no conditions. Ambition without loyalty blooms when strength values skill over allegiance. Moral manipulation reigns when emotion overrules order. Each one feeds the next. A single act of forgiveness without justice creates a culture where discipline looks optional. That's how families fall apart, companies implode, and nations decay not through chaos, but through indulgence. And here's the irony. The world will call you cruel for holding people accountable. They'll call you cold for cutting off parasites. But those same people will quietly respect you and fear disappointing you. That's the difference between temporary approval and lasting influence. Machiavelli's leaders weren't loved. They were understood. Their power didn't come from manipulation, but from clarity so sharp it couldn't be mistaken. They didn't ask for loyalty. They inspired it through predictability. People followed them not because they were perfect, but because everyone knew exactly what breaking the rules would cost. You can apply this in your everyday life. When someone disrespects your time, don't debate it. Withdraw your access. When someone flatters you to gain favor, ask for truth instead. They'll either reveal their purpose or retreat. When someone uses guilt to control you, answer with calm silence. Because silence in the face of manipulation is power reclaimed. Power isn't about domination. It's about discipline. And discipline, in this sense, means refusing to let emotion override principle. You can't build order on empathy alone. It collapses under the weight of exploitation. Machiavelli said, "Mercy without strength leads to ruin." He didn't say, "Don't be merciful." He said, "Make sure mercy serves order." Because every act of compassion, if misused, becomes currency for the corrupt. Your kindness should be deliberate, not reactive. Your forgiveness should be earned, not assumed. Your loyalty should be mirrored, not one-sided. When you master that balance, you no longer need to chase respect. It follows you. The room changes when you enter. People measure their words, not because you threaten them, but because they feel the gravity of consequence. That's what true Machiavellian power looks like. Silent, disciplined, aware. The kind that doesn't shout, doesn't explain, and never tolerates what erodes its structure. In the final part, we'll tie everything together. How to build an unbreakable code of leadership and self-respect from these principles. How to act decisively without cruelty. And how to maintain your peace while remaining utterly untouchable. Everything Machiavelli taught leads to one truth. Power isn't destroyed in an explosion. It decays in silence. It's not lost through one great act of betrayal, but through every small wrong you let pass unpunished. The downfall of any empire, leader, or man begins the same way, with tolerance disguised as patience. People think being forgiving makes them wise. It doesn't. Forgiveness without consequence is just permission in disguise. You don't lose control because others are evil. You lose it because you keep trying to be good in a world that rewards clarity over kindness. Machiavelli's philosophy was never about cruelty. It was about precision. He understood that if you act early, you don't need to act brutally. When you punish once, clearly, you don't have to punish again. When your rules are sharp, no one tests them. That's the essence of lasting power. Calm discipline, not chaos. Strength without noise. Mercy with calculation. Here's how you hold your ground in a world built to test it. First, punish early, not hard. You stop betrayal before it spreads. You cut disloyalty at the root. The first time someone crosses your line, act. Don't debate, don't negotiate, and never let "it's not a big deal" become a phrase in your vocabulary. Every time you delay action, you're teaching others how to ignore you. Second, let silence speak for you. The strongest men don't need to shout. Their withdrawal of approval carries more weight than any argument. When you stop explaining and simply step back, people feel the vacuum. Silence, when consistent, becomes fear without threat, respect without words. Third, never justify your boundaries. Explaining yourself to the wrong audience only cheapens your authority. If your values are solid, your decisions don't need to be defended. Those who understand won't ask for explanations. Those who don't aren't worth convincing. Fourth, reward loyalty like gold. True loyalty is rare. It must be honored, not assumed. Praise those who stay when things get difficult. Make sure everyone sees that loyalty is the fastest way to rise in your world, and betrayal the fastest way to vanish from it. Fifth, control your mercy. Mercy is not weakness. It's a weapon. Give it to those who show gratitude and principle, never to those who exploit your compassion. A single act of unguarded kindness toward a snake can undo 100 victories. Sixth, keep your standards predictable, your methods unpredictable. People should always know your principles, but never know how you'll enforce them. Predictable rules build trust. Unpredictable responses build caution. Together, they create stability and fear, the twin pillars of order. Seventh, never let emotion command your judgment. Your throne is built on structure, not sympathy. The moment you start deciding out of guilt or people-pleasing, you've already surrendered authority. Stay calm, detached, and deliberate. Compassion means nothing if it leads you to ruin. Machiavelli said mercy without strength leads to disaster. He didn't mean to be heartless. He meant that order cannot exist without consequence. You can be kind, but never at the expense of clarity. You can forgive, but only when the lesson has been learned. Because every time you ignore disrespect, you rewrite the law of your own kingdom. The people around you stop fearing the cost of defiance. They start believing the structure will bend, and once they believe that, collapse becomes inevitable. Your life is your empire. Your focus is your army. Your standards are your fortress walls. Protect them. When betrayal appears, act once. When cowardice spreads, replace it. When flattery surrounds you, test it. When ingratitude shows its face, remove it. When morality becomes theater, silence the stage. Do this, and you won't need to command fear. It will exist naturally in the minds of those who know where your line stands. True power isn't loud or cruel. It's consistent. It doesn't chase loyalty. It attracts it through discipline. It doesn't beg to be respected. It simply stops tolerating what rots respect. So write this into your code. Act early, forgive rarely, speak less, watch more, protect what matters. Because empires don't fall from the outside. They fall when the ruler forgets what must never be forgiven.